Yeah, the whole Bigfoot thing depends so much on someone who cares to pay attention.
I had no fear, but my emotions were off the chart.
Mm-hmm. Were you recording that?
Yeah.
Good.
So we are on the hill above the cabin. I'm going to stay up on this hill tonight. It'll put us, I think, in like the perfect position because cabin is right there, and then I'm right there. So I've been hoping I could stay up here in the Jeep since I got it. But with Cliff down there, and he'll have a walkie-talkie, so if something were to happen, like a rock throw or anything during the night, he should be able to get a hold of me. But yeah, we haven't done an episode in about maybe a month and a half. And mostly that's because it's been quiet out here. We found the pelvis in the tree and the bone pile. And that was the last time we came out. So it's been maybe a month and a half, like six, 7 weeks. And the undergrowth is just starting to come back in, and we're even getting some leaves on the trees and stuff. So we're actually pretty excited to come back out, and I don't know, maybe something will happen. That's always the goal, obviously, especially with Cliff here. I'm excited to get Cliff's input on what's going on here. I'm going to be disappointed if nothing happens because I feel like I'll be wasting his time. But I also have warned him that it's been quiet and we're not expecting a ton of activity. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, so basically everything from the edge of those woods over to where you can't even see over there is ours.
Okay.
So your cabin is kind of straight ahead, actually.
Over there?
But it's tucked in between the trees.
Tucked down in that valley.
Okay.
I mean, there's more forest across the street over that direction. I think we might actually do like a night hike either tonight or tomorrow night down that way if you want to. I also don't want to overwork you after.
No, whatever, man. Beat me to death. I go home Wednesday. I'll sleep then. Yeah.
So we're driving through here, broad daylight, and this whole pipeline was overrun with brush, but like real thick, like thorns, Ohio thorns. Like you couldn't get through there. There was a huge brush row right in front of the road that stopped maybe like 10 to 15 feet from the end there, but there was still so much brush you couldn't tell there was a road there. I looked up there and we were flying across, and it was sprinting across that flat section of ground, which at the time I thought it was running through the brush because I didn't know that was there. And so I just saw it sprinting across, and maybe like a second long. It was like dark brown and went into the, like you could see its arms pumping
and stuff.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
Going this way or this way?
That way.
This way?
Yeah, that way. And freaked out, jumped out of the gator, ran down there, and
why wouldn't you drive there?
We couldn't.
Oh, that's right.
This was this was brush, and also we didn't realize there was a road there because this was only, what was that, like that was our first weekend shooting.
August.
It was literally like my first time out here shooting the series. Yeah, we had some game cams. Did you hear him? What he said about hanging game cams?
No.
He said put them on like man-made structures. He was like that telephone pole down there.
They'll
Like,
probably have a better shot, I think.
yeah.
Just because, well, especially that telephone pole, because there's already electricity running through it.
Right.
If they can hear the electricity, well, they're not going to notice that. Oh, that human thing's different than these other human things. And if they can hear the electrical stuff, then they're going to be able to hear all that other buzz too, so it won't freak them out. It's hard for me to say I think this because I think it's a very real possibility.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's a smell because they don't have the prognathism, so like they don't have a lot of surface area for sensory, the smell sensory receptors to be there.
Really?
Yeah.
So like,
well, you can look at their anatomy and say that these are not scent oriented animals. They have a better sense of smell than we do because we've domesticated ourselves.
Yeah.
But you would expect about the same, like if we were like on the top of our game for smelliness. You know?
Okay. I was wondering about that because I know these guys that are like, if you go out in the woods and you're like trying to sneak up on them, you have to get that stuff that like hunters use, the like that's
the decenter stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. People tell me that too, but I think they're wrong.
Oh, okay.
And maybe they're right. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I looking at their anatomy, they don't have bears and deer and dog and all that other stuff that are so scent oriented. Mm-hmm. They have long snouts because they need more surface area for the sensory receptors for their sense of smell.
Right.
Sasquatches don't have that. They have flat noses pushed up against their face. They don't have that. So why would we think that they have this amazing sense of smell that they're tracking people by smell? No, there's no reason to think that. You can look at their anatomy and learn a lot about them.
Yeah.
Because
there's discrepancies in the reports with the noses.
Yeah. But they never have that.
Really?
Yeah.
Like a prodigious.
Yeah, just think of like a deer nose,
Yeah.
A deer nose.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Huh. There's not a lot of prognathism in them, like the slight protrusion sometimes, but that might be more chewing oriented than anything. They're obviously great chewers, with the sagittal crest and the zygomatic arches and stuff like that. That's all anchors for chewing muscles.
Yeah.
All those features.
The connecting point to all of this is the pipeline, though.
Yeah.
Because everything seems to, all the activity on the property comes near where the pipeline is.
Mm-hmm. The pipeline and the electrical lines.
Well, and the other thing is, so during winter, we had activity at least into when were Mark and I out here that everything popped off. Well, like the rock thrown at him and all
November, maybe? It was late.
It was getting late into the year. Mm-hmm. And then after that, it just died off. But
you said somebody saw one in December, didn't you?
My mother-in-law
her
did.
mom,
yeah.
but that was
about a mile that way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is it that way?
Yeah.
No, it's that way.
What? Oh yeah, you're right. It's this way. Sorry, my bad. I don't do directions.
I wonder if the pipeline.
There's a railroad track. The railroad tracks go that way.
Oh well, there you go. There's another one. But between the pipelines and the fields and the cornfields and the railroad tracks and the creeks, they've got a whole highway system,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What was the description of that?
So she said that she always gets up in the morning and drinks coffee, and behind her house is a huge field. Mm-hmm. And I think, it was winter, so everything was dead, and she thought that it was like a bear or something hunkered over, which is still rare to see a bear in this area anyway. But she went up to get her binoculars because she loves to watch nature, and it stood up on two legs and took off across the field within just a few strides. Mm-hmm. And it's a huge field.
There's no way to tell if it was the same one as the other ones that are being seen.
No, because I don't remember.
Color was.
I feel like she might have said it was brown, but I don't. I'd have to go back through the messages. It's been a few years now.
See, the winter stuff makes no sense to me. I went from being like super gung-ho, like they're here, they're definitely here, so like they have to move out. Because during the winter, there's no canopy here, and you could see anywhere. Yeah. So what we did, one of the times we were filming, we actually, right off this pipeline, on the other side of that hill, there's an area with like real thick, like thorny brush. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was a kid, I don't think there's much to this, but I remember when I was a kid, there was a story about a monster living in a thorny, like, because you have those thorn patches that are like yards, like massive. and supposedly there was like something living back there.
Yeah.
And I remember as a kid crawling in there, and there was a little cave. Like you crawl through the thorn bushes. So we went over that way, found one of those like thorny patches, and went into it. Real thick brush, and I was like, see, this is where I could see them.
Yeah, like
being
lounging around during the day.
during the day. Well, what do they do at night? They don't stay in the
They
same.
forage.
Well, where the hell are the babies?
Baby what? Sasquatches?
Yeah.
They're around. Well, there aren't very many of them. You know? It's it's not like they're not like humans where like the young outnumber the adults or anything like that. As far as I know, as far as I can tell. Because baby footprint tracks are so rare. Is there a cedar swamp nearby?
There is a
Yes.
swamp nearby because that's where we filmed Rougarou.
It should be.
Is it a cedar swamp?
I
though?
think it is a cedar because it's not.
I know there's a rookery as well.
Well, yeah, there's some chemical, I guess, in cedar swamps that prohibit water from freezing sometimes. And where the spring is coming out of the water is one of the, like, so during the winter time when
Yeah.
there's snow on the ground, and God knows how much snow you guys get here. That's the kind of place that the deer tend to go to
Okay.
and hunker down inside, and that also seems to be the place that most Sasquatch reports are around.
Well, that would make sense because the swamp is right by my mother-in-law's. So, and she saw hers in the winter.
In the wintertime. Yeah. So that seems right now that's our working hypothesis.
I think they come up to the cabin. I don't know if they will without any kind of cover, and they're actually cutting out the cover that was around the cabin, so I don't know if they're going to come up as close as they were. But
This will
like,
still get thick in the summer, though.
Yeah.
I mean, thorns grow up. It's very
so
thick.
there's something we've heard twice outside the cabin that's like this asthmatic breathing. I've heard it twice on the other side of the wall. It's like me and my 4-year-old are out here, and it was like
Yeah.
right on the other side of the wall. And it went for maybe like 15 seconds.
Yeah, I hear that a lot with these things.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, breathing's one of their things, man. That's what the one that Gretchen's Lock did at me.
Really?
He's like,
Yeah. And what else does that?
Yeah.
what else does?
We've also caught the footstep sounds on the sounds like they come up on the porch. We've caught that.
Oh
on
yeah,
audio.
yeah. We had a recorder out, and you get this thing literally. You hear it come up the steps, like step, step, step. Walk across the porch. Eventually, you just hear it walk back across the porch, down the steps, and away.
Have you ever checked the supporting beams up high for hair?
Uh-uh.
You might want to.
No,
Some
that's
other hair samples.
This
from
is why
places
you're
like
here
that.
to tell me to do these things.
The subtle things.
Well, like anything, because I've
Yeah,
been
the
into this
situation,
stuff
right.
forever, but I'm not like, I don't consider myself like an investigator or anything. I've never,
It's just a word, man. I don't
Yeah.
even like people telling me things.
yeah.
I just like Bigfoot stuff, and I'm into it. I don't know if I'm a researcher, investigator, or what, but
It's
yeah,
not supposed to be super cold tonight, but if it gets cold, you got a fireplace in here.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Oh, these are nice digs. I'd totally live here if I wasn't married.
Dude, honestly,
Yeah,
Tommy
this is
and I
great.
just kept coming back. Like we were out here nonstop during the late summer and early fall last year.
This is cool. I like it.
It's like his home away from home. He keeps asking when we're coming back.
Very cool. Yeah, this totally works.
She does the. I hesitate to say gifting, but she like leaves out stuff. That was one of the first things that happened that got us. There's some mouse turds, but the first time we were like one of the first things that we knew activity was ongoing was she had left.
I had left crystals and stuff in the woods when we first moved in because I thought the kids might find them when they got older. So I put them around on like a treasure hunt. And after we had heard a howl, and I thought, well, I should go check some of those things. And I went back, and the one crystal was gone, and there was a vertebrae in its place. And I called Seth, and he was like, "You didn't touch it, did you?" I'm like, "Actually, yeah, I already picked it up." And he was like, "You shouldn't have touched it." I'm like, "Sorry." But that crystal was gone about a month. And then it got brought back. It was all dirty.
Isn't that weird?
It's that crystal wasn't in the same place. It's in the house now. But I.
where was it?
No, it got.
Oh, it
brought
was in
back
the same
to
place.
Brought back
Yeah.
to the same place. Yeah.
And there are like different geodes that I put up there, and for some reason I don't know why, but the one geode, it doesn't matter where I put it, it gets tossed. like several feet one way or another. And it's not little, so I can't imagine it's like a squirrel pushing it over or something. But
You've also wedged it too, right?
yeah, I've wedged them different stones to see if they get
You
moved,
had
and I even
toys?
put blocks. Yeah, I put toys out here for them.
And they got thrown, didn't they?
Yeah, they got tossed off. They were over down by the lake or by the pond.
You put squeaky toys out?
I haven't put any squeaky toys out.
Might be something worth doing.
All right.
We haven't done like the bait. Like I know people say stuff about like apples and peanut butter. I haven't done that stuff.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, people try different. Try whatever. It's all an experiment, right?
Yeah.
If you're getting luck with rocks and stuff, keep doing that
Yeah.
until they get bored of it.
When did that stop? That hasn't been the case though lately, right? It like died off.
Everything is stopped.
Yeah.
It seems like
Yeah,
over
might
the
just be in a
winter.
different area.
But yeah, I've thought about, well, I have bones, putting different bones out, or maybe I brought shells the one time. Nothing happened with the shells.
Historically, activity in Minerva is like August to
November,
late September, October. That's when like the most reports. I know like all the Minerva monster stuff was like late July, August, September, and
which is so crop season.
oh yeah. Alright, so currently we are at a golf course outside of Carrollton. We are only about 15 minutes from the cabin, but this is a location where there have been sightings here and a track cast found. The cliff is actually looked into.
I was telling Cliff, this was several years ago, so things have developed quite a bit more.
And what year was it?
2014.
2014.
Okay, so a lot of these houses you see weren't there. And as you can see, there's woods here, and it was kind of a Woods Creek lake that goes up that way. But it's changed so much.
Now, is that the year you contacted me?
Yes.
Yeah.
2014?
Yeah.
Okay. That was right in the thick of finding Bigfoot, so. Yeah.
Right, you guys were very busy. You emailed me back and forth a couple times, but you know.
Good. I'm glad I did that. I'm batting about 80%, as far as getting back to people goes.
Yeah.
But there's not usually much I can do unless I'm,
Right.
I'm going to be in the area. So.
Right. Yeah. So it's a sand trap. So as you can see, I mean, where she's from here to the other side of the bunkers, how far is that? So 18, 20 feet. There was one footprint approximately right here.
Oh, really?
And that was it.
Headed that way or this way?
This way.
That way.
And you could tell where it landed because it's like all the weight was on the toes, especially the big toe, and then just took off. But our son saw him running around along these tree lines. He was taking his cousin home.
The same night.
The same day or same
Yeah.
night. Like,
Yeah.
What is up that way?
Okay, we'll drive around that way.
that sighting you described down there, when did that one happen?
That was Chuck's sighting was what, probably 2 or 3 years before Tony's. Or not,
Before this?
no, it was before this. It was absolutely before this.
I see.
Like I told you, he walked every morning, and since he saw the gray one, as he referred to it, he's no longer with us to confer that, unfortunately. But he would never walk down here again.
He wouldn't go along any of the woods.
He would not. He and it didn't do anything. It just walked away from him. You know? And and I believe several years later, what I saw, as he referred to as a gray one, is what I saw, because it was twilight dusk, and it was very light, and I thought it was a ghost.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. I mean, I can't describe what it was.
But you think it might have been one of these things?
It was something. It was.
Well, he heard it walking in the woods.
Well, when I came inside and I told her, and she's like, it was the gray one. I ran on my back porch. My son came with me, and we heard something very large running through the woods. And I had no fear, but my emotions were off the chart. And I went after it, and my son's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I want to find out what it is." But of course I never did. But there was no fear factor there at all.
But
Was there initially?
No.
Yeah.
No, it was.
Just hit his emotions.
It affected me emotionally like I've never been affected emotionally before. I was crying, but I wasn't sad. I wasn't happy. I just was crying and talking to you like I am now. But I was crying, and I don't know why.
Yeah, that wasn't your friend's experience at all. Your friend sounds like it scared the hell out of him.
He scared the hell out of him.
Yeah.
And I wanted to chase it, you know. So we'll take a little trip here, and I'll show you the other
I'd like
things,
to
and
see
then
it.
we'll take you back to the clubhouse. Show you.
Yeah, it's right in the zone. 15 inches is kind of the standard there. Nice rounded heel. You can see the toes in some degree, especially the hallux or the big toe.
Right.
And looks like maybe the 4th digit out. I like how this small digit there it suggests that it's going out, but you can actually feel it. I don't know if you ever ran your fingers
didn't.
across it.
Yeah, we actually had a couple universities that wanted this,
Really?
but they told us we wouldn't get it back.
Oh.
And the reason I didn't send it was because, just like you did right now, you handled it.
Right.
So what's that going to do? It's going to compromise. They wanted it for DNA because of the sand.
Oh, yeah.
So now you've touched it. What did you do to the DNA? You
Yeah.
compromised the DNA
Yeah.
because sand is porous and it'll take the like if you run in sand, it scratches your feet. It's going to take some of the tissue off of your
Really?
feet.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. Wow.
That's why they were so interested in it, because it was sand.
I'm
Was it within-
assuming that's pretty accurate to how deep the impression was.
Yeah.
Right, because you were standing on that sand,
Yeah.
and this was right after
Yeah.
a spring thunderstorm.
Wow.
And the sand was actually firmer. So you had a hard time leaving a print in that sand, didn't you?
Yeah.
So it was a very hard surface.
Yeah.
And this is the next day, probably 16 hours later, when it had dried out, that we had found it.
So if you look at the picture, right, you can see the rounded heel in here, right? You can see this rectangular area with like a line of toes over here. It showed up actually better in the picture than it did the footprint. And then there's evidence of where the mid-tarsal joint would be right here, with the little line right there. It didn't show up as well in the cast, so I've got to congratulate you for not only casting it, which is above and beyond what most Bigfoot researchers do, but also you took a photograph of it in the ground with the scale item. Yeah, because a lot of times what I'm finding through my learning process of doing this for 28 years or whatever I've been doing, there are some details that show up better in pictures than they do the cast, and then vice versa. One should always do both, so you did.
Well, this is all because of your show.
Yeah.
That's what I was telling him. Is like,
Yeah, definitely. So do they think that structurally that or anatomically they're similar to us?
No,
No.
not at all. No, I mean they're superficially.
Okay.
Only, but the superficial part is because the big toe goes forward as opposed to out to the side. It's adducted instead of abducted. But other than that, there's beyond the superficial appearance, there's not much that's very similar about their feet and ours, because they're not built like us. They're not humans, right? And they're so big and massive. And that was one of the earlier discoveries that actually changed some of the physical anthropologists into like, oh my God, these things are probably real. There are markers in the foot, like that thing I just pointed out to you, and where this ridge right here is, that show us where some of the bones are underneath the foot, because the footprint isn't just like that's the shape of the foot.
Right.
That foot hit the ground and moved and changed, and then pressure was put on it at a certain place as the thing leapt forward and to the other side of the sand trap there, right? So it's an interaction between the ground and the foot.
Sure.
So because of that you can see where certain pressure points are and all that sort of thing. And by looking closely at a bunch of casts, you can start piecing together where the underlying bones are. And it turns out that their feet differ from ours in like some leverage ratios. Like the metatarsals, which are the bones right behind your toes and in front of that big jumble of bones underneath your ankles, the metatarsals are actually shortened. The ankle is moved forward on the foot, which elongates the heel. that's important because the way we walk is basically like if this were the foot and this is the heel and the toes are over here, the way we walk is that tendons go from the ankle up to our calf muscles and they pull up on it and that kind of propels us forward, right?
Right.
Well, by elongating the heel, what that's doing is doing the same thing as lengthening the arms on a wheelbarrow, right? So you throw a bunch of stuff in a wheelbarrow, lift it up, oh, it's heavy. Put a bunch more stuff, you can struggle or you can lengthen the handles and it's easier to lift. You have to lift it further.
Sure.
Work is conserved, you know, but you have to lift it further, but it's easier to lift. And that's the same thing that elongating the heel segment does when that lifts.
Okay.
Yeah, so Dr. Grover Krantz, who's the guy who kind of figured this out, and then Dr. Melton, of course, built upon it, but he said, yeah, that happens to be, coincidentally, the exact necessary redesign of a foot to carry a mass of 800 to 1,200 pounds. So he didn't think so. Like, that's nature at work. You know, this isn't the contrivance of a hoaxer that planned all this out and put it in a bunch of footprints that happen to match each other, that happens to match the exact biomechanical needs of an animal that size. Sounds ridiculous, right? It's like, oh, be darned, they're real.
So, got the Jeep back there. It's starting to get dark. It's about 8 o'clock. It's a little after 8 o'clock. And we are going to stay at the top of the hill behind the cabin tonight. But for the next few hours, I think we're going to be doing some Bigfooting. See if we can find some activity. So that's the plan for the next foreseeable future. When I originally thought about doing this series, this is what I thought of doing. It was like something where originally I talked to Alex about it. Alex doing it. Finding a spot where there was purported activity and then going there consistently over a long period of time. Mm-hmm. And then this just kind of like happened.
Yeah.
You didn't know it was going to
be near your house.
What's that?
You didn't know it was going to be so close to home.
Well, what's interesting about that is like Alex is the most active area he's looked at. He's been all over the country now, but the most active area is the one in New Hampshire right by where he lives. Yeah. Like the one that he keeps going back to. I mean, that's probably just has to do
maybe
with
that's why.
Yeah, people there.
Maybe that the fact that he keeps going back there,
Right.
that's why it's the most active.
Right.
Because again, where a Bigfoot and a researcher overlap. Mm-hmm. You know, yeah, it's a marathon, man, not a sprint. Anything Bigfoot related, working a location, it's a marathon. Getting to know the seasons, what animals move through when, and so you can start noticing when things are out of place.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole Bigfoot thing depends so much on someone who cares to pay attention. And frankly, not a lot of people do. There's a lot of Bigfoot aficionados out there, a lot of fans and advocates, but very few people actually doing very much beyond the occasional weekend. Who's out there taking notes? Who's out there getting the sighting reports? Who's looking at the areas? Who's plotting things on map? Who's spending some time in the woods? Who's walking the roads during the day looking for prints? The answer is not that many people. Perhaps, I don't know, I'll venture a guess here with very little to back it up, perhaps less than 100 people nationwide. Probably less than 100 people nationwide.
The interesting thing about you saying that is my gut reaction is to be like, well, who are the people that are looking into it that you think of? But something you've always said to me is something to the effect of Bigfooters want to talk about other Bigfooters, not the subject.
Yeah, well, there's a couple reasons for that. Bigfooters, then that includes researchers and the fans and the aficionados and the advocates and everybody else, chroniclers, etc. Not a lot of Bigfoot stuff really happens that is noteworthy. And so we're kind of left with, well, what are we going to talk about? And we tend to talk about each other. Right. So it turns into this like gossip fest full of Karens bitching about things. Yeah. You know, and that's not cool. It's not fun. It doesn't get us anywhere. Yeah. And it's counterproductive, really. And then we talk about older people, like older, not older people, but older footage. And what do you think of so and so who got this footage? Yeah. It's not even about what do you think about the footage. Right. You know, at the museum. Probably not a week goes by that somebody doesn't come in and ask me about, what about so-and-so who got that footage? And it's always the person. Always the person. It's probably part of our genetic programming, actually, being a social animal like we are. We're a social species. It's probably something to do with that. But I would way rather talk about the footage, or the prospects of an area, or the animals. God forbid we talk about the animals. And there's some people probably watching this right now who'll be pissed that I called them animals. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. It's a weird, convoluted community.
So we have a new thermal unit we bought. This is the first time we've taken it out because we haven't actually stayed out here since we got it. So it's a Pulsar something or other. But it should be significantly better than the Scout. You said you've used one of these?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, alright. So I think they're better. I think they're slightly better than the Scout.
Oh, they're a lot better.
They're a lot better. They're a lot better than the Scout. So it's approaching 10 o'clock. We are just hanging out at this point. I mean, for context, obviously, if you're watching this, you already might know from previous episodes that it's been quiet out here the last 3-4 months. And we are hoping that we might be heading into the time of year where something happens. But thus far, it isn't the case. It's pretty quiet out here tonight again. We're gonna go up to the Rougarou Woods with the new thermal and Cliff's thermal and see if there's anything up there. So far, the only thing that's happened has been some coyote going off and one kind of strange sound that we heard over in that direction. But otherwise, it's been typically quiet. The same quiet level of quiet there's been here lately.
Can I do a knock or two?
Yeah. There's a tree. Where's the closest tree? Right. Yeah, that's right.
Wait till they're done.
That's a different coyote sound.
so?
That sounds scared.
Really?
Or it's hurt.
Sure got quiet out here.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't we get a return call?
And you guys don't vocalize here, right?
Hmm?
You guys don't vocalize here?
I've done calls just to goof off. But I mean, I don't know what I'm doing.
We've blasted the Ohio call and a
Yeah,
few
we've
other
done
things.
we've done some call, like we did Gregorian chants one night, stuff like that. But so far, there just hasn't been any distinct vocalizations. Do you want to do a call?
No, it doesn't matter to me. It's your guys' spot.
You do it.
Well, you said you've heard whoops here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I want to do one of those then.
Did you hear that? It sounded like a phone ringing. Did you hear it?
No.
No. Okay.
I don't feel it.
It sounded like it was in, like over here, but not far. Ding, 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 ding. I swear someday we're gonna find out there's just like some kids out here messing with us.
Yeah, why wouldn't you want to be just right here? 360-degree view, all directions. Big expanses of grazing land to observe in case your herd pops up on it. You can start strategizing and force them into a choke point of some sort. And these things are ambush predators, I believe. And this would be a good starting point to pick your prey and remain out of sight. This would be a great spot to bring a couple chairs up, store them in this shed thing over there to keep them out of the elements, and set up chairs and listen.
If their hearing is decent, maybe that's why we hear them up here so much. It's a good spot for them too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and everything about them is strategic. They put themselves in places where they can see as much as possible. If they're around you, there's going to be something between you and it, almost always. Maybe it's a wall like in the cabin, maybe it's the pond if you're down by the fire, but we call that the castle and moat. They're always in the castle and there's always a moat. Their whole life is spent seeking the advantage like a sniper does. Unless they screw up. I mean, after all, they're only inhuman.
It's morning. I just spent the night in the Jeep. Not much happened last night. Some strange sounds that we hadn't heard before that sounded like vocalizations. We got a couple of those. Cliff left a recorder out at the cabin, and then I had a recorder out last night while we were just kind of hanging out as well. So I'll probably review that audio at some point. Today, my plan is to go out on the property and hang the two new long-term audio units that we have, and those should be out here for the foreseeable future. But other than that, today's going to be pretty relaxed, just hanging out around the cabin, and hopefully tonight we'll go. It's supposed to rain today, but we wanted to go on a night hike over to the other property, kind of over by where the cave is. Leesville Lake is near a town called Carrollton, and it is near Delroy, which is Atwood Lake area. There have been historically sightings around Atwood Lake all the way back to the 70s. There's at least one report on the BFRO, and then recently, in the last like 3 years, there was a hiker over by Atwood Lake who had a sighting as well. I couldn't find anything on like BFRO about Leesville Lake, but I know that there have been sightings here over the years. Tappan Lake too, Deerfield, all these areas relatively close to Minerva have historically had sightings.
They obviously need a big chunk of land or a forest and cover and whatnot for their like core area, their core habitat. But there's plenty of pockets of woods everywhere.
Yeah.
You can move, and as long as they're keeping them moving, they're not going to be found.
Right.
Because most of those pockets of woods aren't really looked in on any regular basis.
But there's specific things you were talking about, like pine. What is it? Cedar.
Well, yeah. Well,
Cedar swamp.
Here you can see a pretty good distance, but you look over to where the pines are, it's a lot thicker. So I think that those are the areas that they're going to favor during the winter months in particular, while there's no leaves on the trees. And also that's a place where a lot of deer bed down all the time too. I think a lot of the key to Sasquatch behavior is centered around deer. So if you follow the deer, you're going to follow the Sasquatches.
What would we be looking for, or what would you term as, like, especially here in Ohio, what would you think sort of establishes a location that might be like long-term suitable for them to survive in or live
Well,
in?
there's got to be water there, obviously. There's got to be a ton of cover, and there's got to be a ton of food.
Yeah.
And basically, those are the three things. After that, you want to start looking at how they can strategize in an area. Like I always like looking at box canyons and narrow choke points along rivers surrounded by big high rocks like this. Because deer can run up and down this stuff all day long, but when they hit something like that, it becomes a problem. And so I think Sasquatches take advantage of that. And if there's a choke point with big rocks on both sides, they can flush the deer through that. Because I believe, at least, that they're ambush predators. I've taken reports from people who have observed them hunting or whatever, and like hunting cooperatively, seemingly trying to run deer through choke points and towards cliffs and against fences and things like that. So the Sasquatches are going to take advantage of the natural environment to use it strategically to their advantage. Were you recording that?
Yeah.
Good. It's definitely out of place.
I thought it was a siren at first.
Yeah, so did I.
Did you pin it from over there?
I pinned it from down there.
From down there. Oh, so exactly opposite direction. Oh, good.
Where did you hear it from, Heather?
I thought it was from down there,
Might be right there.
but I was also facing that way, so maybe that was.
Have you ever heard that before out here?
No, I don't hear anything out here. I usually don't see anything out here. I mean, once in a while deer, but they like hear me coming. so they take off.
That seemed to have two.
Well, it wasn't a coyote, that's for sure.
But it had what's the word?
The phonemes?
Phonemes.
Yeah, that it was either a person or a Sasquatch. I would think. I'll do a whoop or two.
Were you recording too?
I wasn't, no.
I hope I caught it good. I had the good mic going.
Whoop!
What are the odds?
Oh, what are the odds of a Sasquatch vocalizing during the day, or the fact that we're here and it happened?
That we just happened to walk out here. We haven't been out here 5 minutes.
It's Bigfoot. The unexpected happens.
When they let out a howl like that, what would that, do we have any ideas of what that could be conveying? It's just making noise.
Well,
I don't know. I mean, I was just talking to one guy, a former cryptolinguist for the Air Force.
Yeah.
And he was telling me that see, that one went like up and then back down, but he said the ones that sustain pitch and then drop at the end, he says very often there's answers either immediately following the vocalization or actually during the vocalization itself. So that might be an indicator. And when I say answers, it's usually whoops or knocks at answer. So perhaps those, it could be speculated, are like, where are you, sort of thing. That, I don't know. I didn't hear anything else associated with it, but, you know.
so can you talk about your dad? What he heard out here?
So we live
Because the only thing is we should maybe send him what we just recorded.
Oh, yeah, we
and
could.
see if he says that that's anything like what he heard.
Yeah. So it was a couple winters ago, my dad let the dog out, which we live not far from here. And coyotes were getting all worked up. And he said there was this really loud howl, unlike anything he's heard before, and he grew up in this area. And everything went dead silent after that. And so the next day he said something to my brother and I, and then we came out in these woods just to see if we could find anything. But it was, like I said, the middle of winter, so traversing some of these ravines was not very doable. But we didn't see anything weird. I don't know what we were really looking for. I guess footprints in the snow or something.
Yeah. I mean, given the rain, do you think it's worth going in the general direction of where we think we just heard that and trying to find tracks or something? Is it worth doing when it's wet out like this?
Well, it could be. It could be. If we find something, it's definitely worth it. But we don't exactly know where that came from either.
Yeah.
I think it's easier to find them out there.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because there's less habitat, and there's less ideal habitat for them. Out in the Pacific Northwest, where I live, everywhere is perfect.
Yeah.
Food, water, cover, everywhere.
What about this stuff do they like?
Well, I mean, it's not exactly steep, but man, it goes up pretty quick. Big grassy area underneath that, like, give it another month or two, this is going to be totally overgrown. So tons of deer. I mean, we already saw the dead raccoon back there. So there's tons of little animals in here as well. But they can stay up either on the ridges up there or on this side, which is even steeper, or they can stay in the brush, because you can't see into the brush, but you can see out of the brush when you're inside there. They can just hole up inside there and be nice and safe and cozy and protected, and still have advantage of the entire valley underneath them. Anything moving up and down here is going to be noticed, and I don't think they're alone very often, so got to keep our ears open for knocks or anything like that as we proceed further up into the valley. But imagine like seeing a deer or two. They can come down behind as the deer move up and start pushing them up towards whatever choke point may be up that direction for some sort of ambush. This is a really good spot. You did a night walk in here, just put your tick armor on and walk up to the lake and back. Like that's a worthy trip.
I mean, between here and the cabin tonight, which place are we most likely to have something happen?
Oh, here.
Probably here.
Uh-huh.
Are you able to guide us through here at night, you think?
Without a light?
Well, I mean, well, if we have, does the red light bother them? Like the one that we have?
If you have to, well, here's when Bigfooting, always go dark, period.
Okay.
If you have to use a light for safety reasons, then it's a red one. But then you turn it off when you're done with that little stretch that was dangerous.
Right. So I would just take you guys in, if we're going to be like in this area, if this is what would be best, then I would, instead of taking you guys up like to the rock, we just continue down that path, and then it runs right into this, and we just follow the creek up.
Oh yeah, we can be on a path
Yeah.
because the Sasquatches are, if they're going to reveal themselves at all, it's going to be with sound, unless we get real lucky. But and they're going to be watching the path
Yeah.
to make sure nobody comes in.
Yep. That'll be easy. The path's easy to navigate.
Okay. Probably less ticky as well.
Yeah.
Although the path isn't here now, so we'd have to get off the path eventually, right?
Yeah, well, I just mean the path will run into this.
Yeah, and then
stream,
we're on this the whole
and
way.
then we follow the stream.
These are the new Wildlife Acoustics long-term audio units that we're going to be using. These will get, as I understand it, like hundreds of hours of audio recording. So we're going to leave them out here at the property, and that's what Cliff and I are about to go do. We're going to go deploy them somewhere in the woods and leave them out for the foreseeable future, and then we'll be checking them down the road. But Wildlife Acoustics Song Meter Mini is what these are called, and they're so you can basically set the schedule so they come on and go off at specific times each day or night. So I'll be mostly having them run at night. So I just got parked where I'm going to be sleeping tonight. I'm going to be sleeping again, kind of where I did the last time, up above the Rougarou Woods. We're going to go down to the cabin and hang out, and it's supposed to storm a lot over the next couple hours. So we're just going to be hanging out around the cabin and not holding my breath at this point for activity tonight. We are not going to be able to go back to Leesville Lake because the storms tonight are going to be severe. So we're going to just hang out around the property here. And then hopefully we'll be revisiting Leesville this summer somewhat. Alright, so it is like 9:30 or something, and we're out at the cabin, and it just sounded like something. What would you say that sound was?
Just a moment ago?
Yeah.
A crack or a splash? I couldn't tell from here, honestly.
It sounded like
Because we're all talking and stuff.
we were talking, and it sounded like there was like possibly a limb break, or I thought I heard some sort of vocal in the middle of it, but I think I'm in vocal mode because we captured some sort of vocal today. So, but things are a little. We got washed out today. Definitely, we didn't get to go back to Leesville because of the rain. So at this point, the plan is just to kind of hang out at the cabin tonight. Did you guys hear that?
No. What direction?
This it'd be
Straight off the porch. This way. Say it's 12 o'clock.
okay. 3.
3. You really don't live there, huh?
Like it sounded like a tree knock. But Heather, what time is it? I'm just trying to. All right, it's 9:05, so that's the time. 9:05, and we're just kind of settling in at the cabin, and we'll see what happens the rest of the night. Cliff says he believes Bigfoot does not exist here, so.
Wait a minute.
So overall, what did you think of the property here? And I guess like since we went to Leesville and all that kind of stuff, not just the property here, but like the surrounding area as well.
Okay. After checking out the property, I think it's very viable habitat for Sasquatches. It's very patchy. in its woodlandness. Like there's probably a 10-acre patch of woods, and then 300 yards, and then another 10-acre patch of woods with larger and smaller patches all along. So I don't think the Sasquatches are being stationary for very long here. I don't think they're like holing up for a week or something. I think that they're passing through. And because of that, when people are at the cabin or people at the lake, I think that if they're making noise and hanging out, or if there's kids involved, which sometimes there has been, the Sasquatches pay attention, and they come by and look and are probably maybe entertained. They're smart animals, and they need entertainment. They need play in their life because they're intelligent and they're curious. I think that they drew the attention of the Sasquatches this past fall, summer, and that'll probably happen again. The question is, when? Because situations like this, being that they're probably aren't resident Sasquatches, but they're probably close by, within like 3 to 5 miles or 10 miles or something, they're going to come here again. So when do they come by? Why are they coming by here? Because that might help predict when. And what can we do to keep the Sasquatch's attention here and keep them coming back? This area is fantastic. Not far away, there's huge areas of woods. Some are recreational, some are private, some are little hidden nooks and crannies. But they hold Sasquatches. I'm completely confident of that. And the data shows that. It backs that up. Ohio's on the map as far as the top Bigfoot hotspots go. It's because of areas like this and those thicker than this.